I took the liberty of renaming this, but it is the same concept for the presentation. My name is Dion McCormick, and you might have seen me on popular webinars, that kind of thing, television. But I'm helping Alpha out with doing weekly webinars and other things to talk to people there. And through that, before I get into my presentation, I'd like to take a moment to do a public service announcement. Is that I don't know if you've seen this individual, but he's wanted by the Greater Massachusetts Animal Control. And if you do see this individual, I would highly recommend you, raise a flag or call them 911, because this guy's on the lam, and it's very important that we kind of have those things done there. If you don't know the background story, make sure to grab Richard. He'll fill you in on all the details on that, how that goes. Good, I love it. So I changed the name of this because, as you can see, and it's quite staggering the amount of changes in Alpha over the last 6 months, especially around mobile and mobile disconnected. And as I've started to use it, I'm going to do a quick demonstration of how to extend that concept with the list. But I've realized that it's important as we move into the mobile world that disconnected is not an afterthought. And in fact, what you want to do as a developer is start to take disconnected, the concept of disconnected, and move it up to the front of your design process of your applications. And I'm going to explain a little bit more of why that's important. So I really want to encourage people as this piece has come on, especially as we're in a mobile world, disconnected is not just I'm not connected to the internet. There's so many other aspects, and we'll talk a little bit there. But what I want to do first is kind of show a real quick demonstration. And so I'm going to show a real quick demonstration of the concept of using local storage, and then talk a little bit more about that, talk a little bit about the concept of thinking disconnected, and then also some next steps that you can take to really start ramping up your knowledge of this to be able to apply it to your projects immediately within the scenario. So the idea behind this came from a client I was working with, is that when you create an app, especially a mobile app, right now the list control is your kind of primary manager of data from disconnected. And it manages all those people, or all those items there. But what we were coming across was the fact that there's a lot of static data that you have in your application that doesn't need all the heavyweight lists and other controls like that, because there are things like in a drop-down box. You just want to have a static set of data there. And so the idea is, how could we manage that static set of data disconnected so that therefore you can run disconnected without having to do that, without having to build a whole list control and other pieces there. So with the help of Selwyn, some other people, they helped me do this. So let me go ahead and go into the development environment, and I'm going to go ahead and show this real quick. So I have a very simple control, and I'm just going to run it and show you how it works. And is everybody able to see that okay? Is it coming across? Big enough to see? I know it's kind of scrunched down a little bit, but how goes there? So traditionally, when you build a drop-down list, you connect that list to the back-end server through a connection string, and then it automatically pulls, say in this case, a list of customers from a customer table. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the first button, and I'm going to go ahead and use the traditional method. So I click that button, you'll see I had a little lag time as basically it went back to the server, grabbed that list of customers, and populated that drop-down list there. Now, that's all fine and good when you're connected, but what if you're out in the field and all of a sudden you don't have connection and you still want to achieve that same result of having that list of customers available in that drop-down box? You're kind of out of luck, but not really, not with the Alpha capabilities. So what we did is we needed a new way, which is called load from local storage, where basically when I click this, you'll notice that there is no lag time, there's no little wheel going around, but basically I achieve the same thing. And in fact, to prove it, I go design, go back into working preview, hit load from local storage. Notice how fast that read did? Is that, it was essentially instantaneous, because what's going on is instead of making the trip back to the server, I'm pulling the data right from a little piece of local storage data there. So this is a very simplistic, and I'm not going to walk you through the code because at the end I'll show you, I've already posted a video on how to build this and how to do this, along with the project files on my website. So you can just download it, go through it at your leisure there. But the important thing about this, which is really, really powerful, is that it was very straightforward and easy to put together with all the hooks that Selwyn and the team have already put together on there. But from a fundamental standpoint, and just to show you the architecture of how it works, is that as we said, normally what happens is you have on your server database, And then when you want to do a drop-down box, the UX control is going to call all the way back to the server. So it's got to connect to the server, run a query on the server, package that data, and then bring all the way back to the device and populate it. Now, when you're on high-speed internet, you saw even on my local machine here, you saw probably a quarter second where it was doing that with the little circle, and that's all the lag time going there. And just to show you that what we did is then we went to a different method. And again, the code's in there and you'll be able to see it, but what we do is we initially go ahead and pull a query of the data in the database into just a piece of JSON. So we basically create some JSON out of the database on the server. So the first time I run this control, and when I hit that load from server, I'm actually just packaging up that data. And then that data comes across and then is stored in local storage on the mobile device. Now, whenever I need to access and upload this or update this drop-down box, it's now going from the data on the local device, not on the server. So huge power because you can work disconnected, but as you noticed also, there was a significant performance improvement. And if you start taking, let's say, a complex interface where you may have 5, 10, 20 drop-down boxes, start adding all those up, you're going to get an incredible speed difference between doing it the traditional method and the other. And there's just a little bit more coding. It's not very, very hard at all. But the thing I wanted to really stress is the idea of, disconnected thinking, is that this was caused because there was a project and they said, okay, we need to have this work disconnected. But I encourage you to start pushing that thinking to the front end of your design process and think about building in these capabilities up front versus just kind of building it the traditional way and then go there, for some very important reasons. First is it's not just mobile. That technique works as fine on my web browser on the desktop as on a mobile device, since it's the same Alpha Anywhere project, same project files, etc. And it's using local storage on the PC, in fact, of a web browser like you would of a mobile device. And so it's not just mobile. Disconnected is not just about mobile. We kind of been thinking and focusing, and everything you've been hearing about is iPads, Samsung devices, whatever it happens to be. But the reality is disconnected works also in the web browser environment to give you more of a desktop feel and capability. Secondly, which is really incredible or is important, is that because of mobile devices, the bar for great user interfaces has been raised. Your eventual consumers of your projects and capabilities have been spoiled by a lot of really talented user interface designers. And they're also getting very spoiled by instantaneous response time. You're sitting there saying, oh, I don't have any lag time, I don't have those little wheels waiting around there. So what you want to be able to do is provide an amazing user experience for the user, and a key part of that is to build your app around the concept of having disconnected data available so everything is rendered locally. And a great example of that, and if you haven't downloaded it, is Dan's Alpha Reader. I mean, the speed and interactivity of that, which is an alpha project, is just amazing because he's leveraging local storage and local storage capability. And again, it's not much more work to do that. And this is another really key thing. Lower server load requirements. Now think about it. Every single time I want to populate that drop-down box, what am I doing to the server? I'm exercising it. It has to go back there. I have lag time. It has to do there. So the user has to wait. And then at the same time, the server has to work a little bit more to do that. But if on the first load of my UX, I load up a whole bunch of local storage data, then two things happen. Everything's happened instantaneous. And that's, again, on your mobile or even your desktop web. So things are just very fluid. And then secondly, which is really important, is that I've decreased the number of hits on my server. So guess what? My server has less load. It can handle more users. So therefore, you have a more cost-effective solution for your clients, because you can say, hey, by doing these little methods here, I can reduce server demand by 20–30%. Thus, it's kind of that positive cycle, because other people who are hitting the server aren't getting as laggy because the server is less loaded, so they get a better experience, and your app runs much, much faster. So again, that's why it was really kind of interesting as I went through the process, was to kind of really understand that disconnected wasn't just about the fact I don't have a connection. Disconnected is really about creating the best, most powerful, most user-exciting application capability you can for both mobile and for both web browser and there. And it's amazing how fast. I mean, even the fact of having a better user experience where the user accidentally shuts out their browser and they bring their browser back up and everything's right there ready to work. That's a lot better than having to go, oh, I lost the last 20 minutes of time because my browser locked up because I was watching YouTube on another tab and it screwed everything up, kind of scenario. So again, that having these kind of applying these techniques and bringing it into your design methodology, in the end, you're going to produce better applications, more exciting applications, things that your clients really enjoy and are like, wow, that's great. I didn't lose everything. That's kind of a positive energy flow that will come back to you and they go, whoever wrote this knew what they were doing because they helped me, not waste the last 10 minutes of my time, other than the whole watching the YouTube video, which was probably a waste of the last 10 minutes of time. So I don't know about you guys, but I always hate the speakers say, they get up there and it's like, you go to seminars and they're sitting there and saying, do as I say, don't do as I do kind of scenario. And so as part of this is all really new stuff to everybody, even to myself. I mean, a lot of these capabilities are just coming online. So I'm taking a specific approach, and I'm going to share that with you and actually share how I go through it, is that I've got a training plan that I put together to kind of get my disconnected thinking in place. First is that it's all about JavaScript. That's the reality, is that to really leverage the client-side activity, you got to know JavaScript. And so ramping your knowledge of JavaScript will be a critical element for you to be able to create better interfaces, to make your life easier, build things faster. So that's one of the key things that I'm focusing on personally is my JavaScript training, and in particular how they're used with web interfaces, on those pieces from that standpoint. Also JSON. The more you know about JSON and how it works, how it's manipulated, how it's iterated, the more you're going to be successful because everything is going to that. You've seen over the last 2 days the amount of JSON you've shown is enormous because of those capabilities. Node.js is my next step. It's not a priority yet because I'd rather focus on the user interface, but definitely Node.js is in my list of training that I'm going to go after. Because as I learn JavaScript, now I have the basics to go into Node.js because it's all JavaScript. And then I can learn the server-side aspects of it there. And then also the HTML templates that Selwyn has put together. That's the other area that I think, and I haven't applied it, but that's going to be monstrously important for creating a phenomenal user interfaces. That is the paradigm of the future. And I didn't even know about the new stuff that was just kind of shown over the last day or two. But the more you know about that HTML templating. And right now, the only training resource is Selwyn's, which are great. So I can't wait to see more of those there. And then CSS, as you also saw there. These are the kind of the building blocks for creating phenomenal user interfaces. And the more you go in, the more you work on these pieces, it's going to be the combination of knowing how to use local storage to do these tricks to speed things up, but also these other techniques to create great user interfaces. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going through this training, and as I go through these training pieces, I'm going to be publishing it on my website. So if you're bored and you don't have any better things to do, you can see kind of what I'm doing to learn these items, and I will put on there my recommendations for classes I've taken for things. And in fact, there is so much content out there. And just to give you an idea of some of them, there's Code Academy, which is free. That's all focused around JavaScript stuff. Udemy, which I find really good stuff. You're talking about $10, $15 for a course. It's all these things are videos, so you can do it on your own time. Lynda.com is another one. The cool thing is binge training because it's kind of like Netflix. You pay that $26 that month, and you can take as much training as you want. So if you want to take a month off and just knock it all out, that's a great way to go because it's $125 and you're good to go. And then also local training. If you're really serious, in most of the cities now you have these boot camps that are focused on JavaScript and other pieces there. I know in Austin, where I'm from, we have a lot of those kind of training camps that are available. They're more pricey, more expensive, and you kind of have, it's physical in terms of going in, but it's like over 2 or 3 days, you just ramp your knowledge and you're done versus taking your time there. But these are the kind of things I'm going to be doing, and again, I'm going to be sharing them to them. And also, just to remind you guys, on each Wednesday, I'm doing a webinar for Alpha, And it's a Q&A webinar where it's an open, and it's like bring your questions, bring what you're stuck on, come in and listen, because you're going to see what other people are stuck on, which probably you'll be stuck on in a little bit farther down the road. And it's really a fun, open venue. We have it every week, and so I want to encourage people. If you're interested in that, go ahead and email Dave at Alpha Software, and he'll add you to the list and make sure you're copied on those pieces there. But what's really fun is that we get a lot of really interesting questions, and obviously I don't know everything, it's very obvious, but I can then find the people and get the information back in and then bring it back to the webinar. So it's really fun, and it's helping me expand my knowledge significantly, and also we're having a lot of fun talking to different people, especially people who are just coming into the Alpha community, and very experienced Alpha developers also. So if you want or need information, oh, it's still there. This is all my contact information. If you go to giantkillerrobot.com, which is the name of my consulting company, I've gone ahead and put a link on the front where this presentation is there, the project files for what I just showed you, the disconnected, and also I recorded a video walking you through the disconnected, how I built that, and the different pieces to it. So it's all packaged up for you. So you can go there, download it, and enjoy it, or if you're really bored, watch it and then complain or some stuff. I don't know, whatever you want. But it's all there. So it's at giantkillerrobot.com, and feel free to download that stuff. We'll see how stress testing we can do that website right now to see how it goes there. So, you know, kind of go back to the very top, and just to sum up real quick. First, again, if you've seen this guy, really, it's very important. You know, we must stop him now before it happens again. Stop him now. And then, but bring disconnected thinking into your design process and start learning about JavaScript and those pieces there is my recommendation, because it's the classic, and I'm sure people have heard this, but one of my favorite quotes of all time was when they asked Wayne Gretzky, they go, well, what makes you such a phenomenal hockey player? And he goes, it was very, very simple. I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck is going to be. And that was the difference in terms of his ability to be just head and shoulders above everybody else as a hockey player. And so, you know, the situation I'm talking about here is by bringing disconnected thinking, you're going to be skating to where the puck is going to be, and you're going to be in a much better position to build phenomenal user interfaces, create phenomenal systems that delight your customer, that they don't lose stuff when their browser, you know, coughs up. It's really enjoying. But I want to say thank you to everybody who's attended my webinars, and I'll be available for other kind of questions and things like that. Go to the website. Feel free to download those pieces. I think I'm ahead of schedule.
You are, and
yeah, but I kind of like, you know, I don't want to bore you with the details. You know,
we actually
oh, and then the magic occurs, but the magic is on my website, so.
But yeah,
and no charge for that stuff. You know, it wasn't like, oh, put in $5 and you get the download.
Magic
you know?
is free, apparently.
Yeah.
Excellent. So anyway, Dan actually had a good idea, and it had to do with, shockingly, it had to do with what types of training people would like to see. Now, we do a webinar every week, so if anyone wants to just raise their hand and say, well, I'd like to know a little bit more about this, now would be the time to
yeah, because it feeds our webinar, because then I'm not just sitting there going, hey, everybody, what do you want to talk about today? What do you guys want to do?
Suggestions, anyone? Yeah, JavaScript. Jason. Jason would be a good one. Yeah.
The psycho killer in movies, or the technology, which is both entertaining.
We could do both.
Yeah, I like Jason.
I've got the hockey mask.
Yeah, I know. I could probably doing that.
XBasic or JavaScript would people be interested in? JavaScript.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
CSS.
I'm going to tell Adina. I'm going to tap her for that.
All right.
Oh, you go ahead and field.
Yes, Jan? Oh, you just have a question. Oh, go ahead. Jan, what is your question?
The HDMI.
Dion, thank you. Great presentation.
Oh, yeah. We're getting set up for the next one, so that's why.
One thing I wasn't quite clear on, I heard several people say be careful with the memory usage, don't overload the DOM. So what you presented there seemed to go a little against that, because obviously the more stuff I bring local, the more I'm going to be eating up memory. Any thoughts on that?
I think the key, and if it's the 5 megabyte, I think Dan, grab.
Thank you. I got this. I got this.
Yeah,
right
this
here.
one.
Okay, so there are all these different types of memory that matter, okay? The DOM is all that HTML stuff, bracket this, bracket, right? That's the document object model. So when you actually have something that's on the screen or moved off the screen, that takes up memory, and there's a limit of that. So for example, if you have a list that actually you have populated it and show, not with the dynamic list, 1,000, that's 1,000 items with sub-items and sub-items. That uses up a lot of DOM memory. That's bad, okay? That's why if you use 100 and then use the on-demand, it's 1/10. The memory that is used for JavaScript, the JSON data that you're dealing with, that you can have up to maybe 100 megabytes of that, okay, in your phone, okay? And because it depends, okay? You have to, but having a megabyte of that stuff is nothing, okay? Local storage is actually on the flash memory of your device, and it is artificially restricted to 5 or 10, like 5 megabytes, of double byte characters. It's restricted to that because if every website said, I want to take a gig, they can denial of service attack your machine. So it's artificially restricted for each domain. So local storage, putting a little bit of text in, like he says, is nothing. But to have a lot of that text to become a lot of things, that's a lot. I mean, a lot of on screen. Does that help answer? Yeah.
One word answer is that local storage is not DOM, basically. So don't confuse local storage with the DOM. It's totally different.
Local storage isn't DOM. DOM isn't JavaScript data, okay? But you can easily move JavaScript data onto the screen into the DOM. There's this magic thing where if you get an element, which you can do with get something ID, get element by ID. Well, you can use that. No, in the Java, the alpha way of doing it. Get value. There are all sorts of. You could get that, or the $sign way of doing it. Then you do .inner HTML, capital HTML. That just puts your HTML right onto the screen. That's writing into the DOM. Okay, it's really easy. Yeah, the local storage ends up directly. That's why it's non-volatile.
But I can't use it as a card or something like that.
You can't control where it is on except under, I think PhoneGap might let you check. PhoneGap lets you decide where it is. Okay, but if you're not using PhoneGap, but PhoneGap you can also use the file system, and which gives you all of it. But local storage in Safari or in Chrome, you're stuck wherever it puts it.
On the desktop, is it the same?
The desktop is different. Desktop, it actually puts it in a file, and it's much slower on the files on the desktop. Local storage on the desktop is slower because it's actually writing to disk, unless you have an SSD.
But it's faster than going over the net to a server, so it's
But on local storage, it goes right into the local hard disk. Okay, is that right? Yes. There's a sandbox. You can't get out of that. You remember cookies? Does everybody remember cookies? Which the browser remembers a little bit. This is cookies on steroids, but only steroids. It's not superpower. Okay. What? It's crucial information. Okay, so what we're looking at is, so here's and remember that the use of local storage is being automated to some extent. It's now in there. There are events that will be saving stuff to it. And Selwyn has some stuff. We'll be having more, I guess, about how to use the local storage events that's built into the system. Remember, as Selwyn said, that when he writes to local storage, he uses special names. Local storage is all named. It's a name and a value, and the value is a string. Name and a value, and the value is a string, and the string usually is JSON. if you do that, you can manage it because you can look at it and see by the name what it comes from. He's doing that automatically for you, putting version numbers in there so you can detect this is old data and throw it away. We'll be teaching you more about this over time. But ask your questions to Dave or to Dion, and Dion can then prepare and have it in a webinar.
And I'll go, I have no idea, and then I'll go find the person who has it,
Or
and we'll get the answer.
go on Twitter and hash alpha dev and ask. Okay.
Great question.
Oh, question over there. Yes.
I'd like to give my my users the ability to do disconnected, but they need to authenticate. How does disconnected work with web security?
A good question. There are many issues with this. But first of all, yeah, no, I've been thinking a lot with it. I've been talking to some of the experts, and I'll be talking to some others. The thing is that it depends on how secure you want to be. From what type, how can a person get in there and slice the chip open and look at it with a microscope in this? Okay. But the thing is that you don't want to have any data on the device that if people can get to it would be a problem. So you don't want to put credentials there. You can put an authentication token that expires. That's pretty good. You can put, so things that's why you want to have, if you have a password to get into a web service, put that on a server. And you have, because you can't connect to the web service if you're disconnected. So you can, let's see, you can delete things in the cache really easily. I mean, you just set the value to null or to quote. Right, so you make sure that you clean up your values and it'll be cleaned up out there. If you put it in, but if you have web pages with stuff, if you were sending an A5W page that actually had the data in there, that might be in the cache, which you can't control, the history cache. But if you have it as JavaScript data, then if a person steals the device, they have to be able to get to the JavaScript before it stops working. When your app stops and they reload the page, that's wiped out. So be careful what you put in static. Anything that you have put in a value, a control, if you've turned on this remembering, will be stored in local storage. A real hacker can get it, but they have to be a really hacker who knows the app and knows what they're doing. But if you once you set it to null, save it out. It's done. Okay. But this is an issue, but it's not an alpha specific issue. Okay. We're in a better sense than some of them, but it's one of the advantages to doing a single page app, because once that app goes away, you can put timers in it. Check in your JavaScript, when was it last run? If you're running more than n minutes since you last wrote a time down, wipe everything out. You can do that, yes. If you write it out and then just, what's the commit to be able to write out your local storage? No, just to say update it. There's a command for updating it on demand.
Did you still have a question down here?
Oh, we have a question down there? Yes.
When doing the drop-down list that you're saving to local cache, and it's data that doesn't change very often, at some point there is going to be a change to it. What's the philosophy on knowing when to go get a new set of drop-down items?
I use the same philosophy as login processing. When the application launches, it does a quick check against, if it's got connection to the server. It connects to the server and sees if there's a new version of that data, and then it downloads it and updates the local storage. So you'll have basically like a refresh process just to say, okay, I'm going to go through and check all my local storage items, update the ones that are needed, and then just do a quick refresh. So when you launch the app is probably the best time.
Oh, with local storage, remember what Selwyn said, because he said so many things, so you got to remember everyone is important. When the local storage is written out automatically for the stuff that is now being done automatically off the list and other controls, there's an event. You can hook that event and you can say, I want to take that data and I want to encrypt it. So you can, that way, at least in the flash memory, it'll be encrypted. Okay, they'll need your app to be able to decrypt it, but that app might be using a token that is not saved, and that you have to get from logging in. And that may be, so therefore you have to, the best practice is you have to talk to somebody who knows enough about JavaScript to do that. But we'll be working on that over time. But these are, if you think about it, you can make it more secure all the time, especially from somebody happening to pick up somebody else or a lost device. I think the big one is the lost device, as opposed to a malicious person who knows to steal it at the right moment out of your hands or at gunpoint and ask you to do something. I mean, you can't do much about that, right?
We're not worried about homeland scenarios,
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels you want to make sure. Don't be dumb about the stuff. If it is important, encrypt it. And there are ways of doing that. Okay? That's why we use JavaScript, because you can find out on the web snippets of code to do things, right? But read the code carefully. Just because it's on the web doesn't make it right. Okay? But you can go to somebody who does know, a person who, there were just a few people who raised their hands when I asked who knows certain thing. Go to one of them and pay them a little bit of money for the snippet of code. We're done. What? We got 30 seconds. You have a question?
Will there be anything in there for, like, when you have an Exchange server, say, on your phone, it forces you to have a lock on your phone? That if someone uses your app, your phone has to have a security code?
I don't think the browser has, I don't even know if you can even get, well, here's the thing. I don't think there is a plug-in for PhoneGap for this, but on iOS, if you have a lock on your phone and you write the data the right way, your data is double encrypted. Okay, I had to do this with my app. In which case, if somebody steals your device and they slice it open and and all that, if they don't know your code, they can't get to it. Apple can't nobody can get to it because it uses that, if you have a good pin. If you have a little pin, it's not as good. That's a facility, but you can detect that, but that's getting very esoteric. I think what a lot of the companies do is they require that it's required by the corporation. The enterprise requires that. I think there may be some MDM stuff that the wrapper that they use for the browser may require that. But that's, yes. These are questions that you're going to have to research.
Yeah, I know, indeed. Thank you. Those are what, but also do realize there's a lot of, two-factor authentication. There's actually third-party services that you can connect to help you do where they send you the text message on your phone and give you an unlock code. You put it in and it all unlocks. So that's the neat thing about the Alpha platform is it's so open. We'll be able to integrate these third-party like authentication systems and other methods to actually enhance your applications. And on a real quick personal note, I want to say thank you very much to the Alpha development team for putting an amazing amount of stuff in there. I mean, it's just staggering the amount of things in there. And so you guys are doing a phenomenal job.